In this video, I'm breaking down two of the biggest problem areas in every kitchen. And you may be thinking, Mark, I have way more than two problem areas in my kitchen, which is probably true and why I have some honorable mentions that I will talk about at the end of the video. But for now, let's dive into these two big problem areas that every kitchen faces, and as soon as I say them, you'll be like, yes, that is something in my kitchen that I need to deal with. Starting with over the fridge. With the average height of women in North America being 64 inches and the average height of men in North America being 69 inches and the average height of a fridge anywhere between 68 and 72 inches, you can see that there is an issue here already. Add to this the depth of a refrigerator cabinet and we have this massive cavern of inaccessibility. It's no wonder that the refrigerator cabinet becomes a wasteland for odds and ends, seasonal trays and plates, and extra boxes of pasta. And while the capacity for storage in a refrigerator cabinet is great, it is generally unutilized to its full potential. And since having a functional kitchen layout means using all of the space efficiently, the refrigerator cabinet is begging for some help. Now, there are some common solutions that people have come up with, designers and DIYers alike, to make the refrigerator cabinet easier to use or easier to access. And one is just by changing what is stored above the refrigerator cabinet. And the most common one that you'll see are tray dividers. Tray dividers are a great way to utilize that space differently than what's normally thought of to go above a refrigerator. And adding a tray divider system to a refrigerator cabinet is very DIY friendly. This can be done for both a stock cabinet to a custom cabinet and everything in between. Whether it's an RTA unit or something that's built in the backyard in the garage, adding something to keep your trays organized is very, very possible. It's a great use of the space, and I highly recommend that this be something that you look at. Now, it doesn't change the fact that the refrigerator cabinet is high, but if done properly, everything will be at arm's reach pretty easily. Another great idea, similar to the tray divider, is using above the refrigerator for a wine rack or open storage. You can see here that they're storing cookbooks and wine above the cookbooks. It looks like that's an adjustable shelf, which makes it even easier to utilize. Here is a latticed work wine rack that takes up the whole space. So if you want to store wine in your kitchen and you want it to be visible above your refrigerator, it could be a great way to do it. Another theme that comes up for above the refrigerator is more open shelving, not just a cabinet without doors, but really utilizing the idea of an open shelf that spans over the top of the fridge. This is less functional overall as there's less space to store stuff and it's harder to access, but if you're looking for a specific look in your kitchen and you want to curate something above your fridge, this can be a very interesting way to do it. Now, one of the more modern ways and more functional ways to access items above your refrigerator is to make those items come out further to you. These items cost more money and they generally take up more space inside of the cabinet. So there's an argument that you're wasting space, but put that against how easily accessible the space you're using becomes. It's a pretty good trade-off. These pull-out units that attach to doors, I think, are an awesome way to use the cabinet above the fridge as they just make the space so much easier. Now, it's still high up and might be challenging to access if you're shorter, but at least it's not buried in above your fridge way in the back. These don't have to be super expensive items either. If you want to DIY your own solution, you easily can by buying some drawer rails and some wood and making your own boxes and pullouts for above the fridge. Now, you want to be careful with weight load on drawers that are above your head for obvious reasons. So I would steer you away from buying these plastic type of units that pull out. Not that they won't hold your box of Cheerios, but if you do decide to start putting heavier items on there, maybe things that you buy in bulk, big jars of peanut butter or mayonnaise or whatnot, it might not be the best solution for that. So if you are thinking of having heavier items stored, make sure that the drawer rails or the mechanism that you're buying can handle the weight. Of course, the modern trend that is growing and growing these days is to have nothing above your refrigerator, but that your refrigerator is a standalone unit. This is something that usually should be worked into your design to make it look right. Oftentimes having a fridge just stuck next to a wall with wall cabinets on one side and just an empty void above can look a little bit off, and so you'll want to make sure that you work with a designer to create the look that you're going for. But just maybe ignoring that space is okay too. And having that space there unutilized shouldn't be that big of a deal in a lot of kitchens. However, I will caution you that if you're going to have no cabinet above your refrigerator, be careful not to store very heavy items on top of your fridge itself. I just don't think generally it's safe and the most efficient use of the space. Now, one of the greatest ways to utilize that space and make it the most efficient and most functional is to add a pull-down wall unit. This is by far the most expensive option, but as you can see here, very easy to utilize, very easy to access, and something that you probably should consider if you have a little bit of money in your budget. Now, what they're doing here is adding a regular wall pull-down unit to the top of the fridge. I haven't yet seen something that takes the full depth of the refrigerator cabinet and utilizes it. So in this solution, you are definitely wasting space in the back of that cabinet, but you're making the most usable space of the cabinet even more usable and accessible. If you're designing a kitchen with the idea of putting a wall pull-down unit above your fridge, I think it's a good opportunity then to make that cabinet shallow. Pull it to the front of the fridge so it's only as deep as the pull-down unit itself. That way the wasted space is in the back and you're not going to accidentally be putting things back there that now are even harder to access because of this unit that's in the way. So really think through that solution and figure out a way to make the cabinet the most functional for you. And if you are in the position that you need a stool or a chair or a ladder to access what's in your refrigerator cabinet, please, please, please be very careful. Oh, and you can also store your cats in your refrigerator cabinet, just in case you have extra cats. While the first problem area in almost every kitchen is over the fridge, the second most common or equally as common dysfunctional area is under your sink. Now, as soon as I mentioned under your sink, your mind probably goes to something like this. But when your new kitchen was installed, this is more like what you would have had. Some fresh, clean, open cabinet that has a lot of problems already. Generally, it's an awkward space because of the plumbing and other utility items that are commonly stored or installed there. Things like your disposal unit, a water filter, maybe an alarm, there's some electrical outlets, there could be extra plumbing for your dishwasher, then throw in that all the cleaning supplies that are logically kept in this space, and then just toss in your compost bin so everything ties together nicely. As with every space in the kitchen, organization goes a long way to making it more functional and efficient. Plus, it's one of the simplest and cheapest ways to bring the functionality of that cabinet back to life. And there's no need to get fancy here if you don't want to. Adding some simple bins and baskets that you can store things in to keep them off the floor of your base cabinet is just the easiest first step. Clear bins, little lazy Susans, anything to increase the efficiency for you. If you can, however, try to add some kind of pull-out drawer to the bottom of that sink base to, again, allow the things to come out to you that you need to access. The problem with every base cabinet, of course, is that they're deep and the stuff in the back will get buried and lost. And your sink cabinet is no different. It just has other things in there that cause a problem. But that doesn't mean that you can't find some solution for a pullout if you go looking for them. Just measure your sink cabinet, measure the available space, go look at Home Depot, go online to Amazon or wherever, and try to find something that fits those dimensions. You'd be surprised at what you can find when you start looking for these solutions. One of the items that's super easy to install, is very inexpensive, and is becoming a hot trend for under the sink is an adjustable shower rod. And because items normally get tossed in there on top of each other, why not just make it easier to access those tossed in items by creating some type of adjustable shelf system or stackable shelf system. It doesn't always have to be as pretty as you'd like it, but it can definitely be more organized and functional if you put a little time and effort into it. Now, I do have a lot of content about sink cabinets specifically. There's one linked in the description below that is one of the better videos that I've made about how to utilize the sink placement, the types of sinks, and specifically what to do under the sink, how to organize it, how to think about it in the design phase. So I'll direct you to that if you want to learn more about sink cabinets. Now, I did talk about some honorable mentions earlier in this video, areas of the kitchen that are problematic for a lot of people. So here's a brief rundown of those areas and quick tips to make them more functional. Base cabinets without shelves. Like a sink base, a regular base cabinet is just as useless if it doesn't have some way of utilizing that space. Now, if you just have a shelf and you're storing items in there and you're okay with getting on your knees or bending down and going in the back of that cabinet, then by all means, that's functional for you. But for a lot of us, we don't want to be doing that. So make sure that you have some way of bringing out those items. The easiest way in a base cabinet is just pull out shelves. Narrow base cabinets that don't have a specific purpose. Narrow cabinets in general are a problem in many kitchens because they are leftover spaces. And so you need to think through narrow cabinets in the design phase so that they have specific use purposes. Cutlery tray, a knife block, spice storage, wine storage, pot storage, you name it storage, but think about those narrow cabinets so they don't get left to be just a base cabinet with a shelf that's now narrow, which is even worse. Any and all corner base cabinets. Corner bases are generally an issue for most people, so think through the best way for you to utilize them and explore options. Don't just get stuck with a Lazy Susan if you think there's something better for your kitchen that you may want to explore. And a Lazy Susan might be the best option for you. I'm not saying that, but there's lots of different ways you can design a base cabinet in a corner. High wall cabinets. Now this one's tough because I'm a fan of vertical storage and I'm a fan of using that space wisely. However, just by its very nature, it's high and hard to access. So you have to consider that when you are adding that to your kitchen. And are you adding it for looks? Perfect. Are you adding it for function? Probably not. Is it extra storage? Sure. So there's a balance there with high wall cabinets. So be aware of those high areas in your kitchen and utilize them properly. You might have other problem areas in your kitchen that I didn't talk about. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what they are. Maybe I can do a video about them as well. And if the sink cabinet is the issue for you, make sure you check out this video. It's just about everything I have to say about sink cabinets. It'll be a big help to you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye. Or we'll see you over there.